I stared at my reflection in the mirror for what felt like the 100th time, brushing a stray lock of hair behind my ear. My stomach fluttered with a strange mix of excitement and nerves. Tonight was the night. My private cooking class. It had started as a simple idea. I'd always loved food, but my skills in the kitchen were embarrassingly basic. Pasta with Jared sauce, omelets, reheated leftovers. That was my reality. After one too many jokes from friends about my culinary disasters, I decided it was time to do something about it. Instead of just scrolling through recipe blogs, I wanted to learn from a real professional, a private chef. The agency had sent me a few profiles, but one name had caught my eye immediately: Adrian Marchand. His profile picture showed a man in his early 30s with dark, tousled hair, sharp cheekbones, and a smile that felt both playful and dangerous. His credentials were impressive: trained in Paris, experience in Michelin-starred restaurants, now freelancing to teach cooking in a more personal way. Something about him made me choose him without hesitation, though deep down I knew it wasn't just about the food. Now, as the doorbell rang, my pulse quickened. I smoothed my dress, a simple wrap dress that was casual but flattering, maybe a little too flattering for a cooking class. I told myself it didn't matter. I was just trying to look presentable. But as I walked to the door, I couldn't shake the little voice whispering, "Maybe you wanted to notice you." When I opened the door, the air seemed to shift. He stood there, tall and confident, his dark hair slightly messy, as though he'd just run his fingers through it. His white chef's jacket was crisp, the sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms dusted with just the right amount of hair. He carried a leather bag in one hand and a crate of ingredients in the other. But it was his eyes that caught me, warm, brown, and mischievous, like he already knew a secret about me. "You must be Claire," he said, his voice smooth and low with just a trace of a French accent that made my knees weaken. "I hope you are ready to cook." I smiled, though my lips felt dry. I think so. But fair warning, I'm terrible in the kitchen." "Then we are going to have fun," he replied, his mouth curving into a grin that sent heat rushing to my cheeks. "Cooking is not about perfection. It is about passion." He stepped inside, and I caught the faint scent of him, something earthy, clean, with a hint of spice. My apartment suddenly felt smaller, the kitchen more intimate than I had realized. He began unpacking his ingredients: fresh basil, garlic, cherry tomatoes, thick-cut pasta, fine cheeses, and a bottle of red wine that gleamed in the light. He moved with practiced grace, every gesture confident, every detail precise. "Tonight," he said, turning to me with that glimmer in his eyes, "I will teach you to make pasta from scratch. It is messy, it is sensual, but always worth it." The word sensual hung in the air like a spark waiting to ignite. My stomach tightened. I laughed lightly, trying to cover the way my body reacted. Messy I can handle. Sensual, though, I'm not so sure. "You will see," he murmured, his gaze holding mine for a fraction too long. We began by making the dough. He guided me step by step, his hands brushing mine as he showed me how to knead it. The first touch was innocent, just his fingers adjusting my grip, but it left a tingling trail up my arm. I could feel the warmth of his body when he leaned close, the strength in his hands as he pressed over mine, pushing the dough firmly against the counter. "Like this," he said softly near my ear. His breath sent a shiver racing down my spine. "Firm, but gentle. You must feel it." I swallowed hard, focusing on the rhythm of our movements, though my heart was pounding far faster than it should. Every time our skin touched, the air thickened with unspoken tension. As the dough came together, I dared a glance at him. He caught my gaze and held it, a knowing smile tugging at his lips. And in that moment, I realized this class wasn't going to be about cooking alone. The dough was resting under a clean towel when Adrian reached for the bottle of wine. "Cooking without wine," he said with a grin, "is like dancing without music. Impossible." I laughed, my nerves unraveling a little. He opened the bottle effortlessly, the cork popping with a soft sound that felt strangely intimate. He poured 2 glasses, handed one to me, and raised his own. "To passion," he toasted. His eyes lingered on mine as he drank, and I felt my throat tighten when I sipped. The wine was rich, velvety, warming me from the inside out. "So, Claire," he said, leaning casually against the counter, "why did you decide to invite a stranger into your home to cook for you?" I smiled, swirling the glass between my fingers. "Honestly, because I'm hopeless in the kitchen. I wanted to learn." And I hesitated, embarrassed to admit it. "I guess I thought it might be fun." "Fun is important," he replied smoothly. "And you are not hopeless. Already, you are a natural with the dough." "Natural?" I scoffed. "You practically held my hands through it." His lips curved into that teasing smile again. But sometimes guidance is needed, no? Besides," he tilted his head, his voice dropping lower, "you respond very well to my touch." The air thickened. My cheeks burned. I forced a laugh, trying to brush it off, but my heart was hammering too loudly in my chest. He turned back to the counter, setting down his glass. "Come," he said, motioning me closer. "We prepare the sauce." The smell of garlic filled the air as he minced it with practiced precision. I tried to imitate him, clumsy but determined. "Slower," he murmured, stepping behind me. His hand slid over mine, steadying my grip on the knife. His chest brushed lightly against my back. "Feel the rhythm. Cooking is like seduction. Too fast and you ruin it. Too slow and you lose the heat. But just right." His voice grazed my ear, low and husky. "Just right. It is unforgettable." A shiver ran through me. I tried to breathe normally, but the closeness was intoxicating. Every move he made seemed intentional, deliberately blurring the line between teaching and teasing. We sautéed the garlic and tomatoes together, the sizzle of the pan filling the silence between us. He leaned in, close enough that I could feel his breath against my cheek. "Smell that?" he asked. I nodded, inhaling the rich, mouth-watering aroma. "That," he whispered, "is anticipation. The same feeling as when you want something and it is just out of reach." I turned my head slightly, and for a moment our faces hovered inches apart. My lips parted, my pulse quickening, but before anything could happen, he pulled back with a smile and dropped basil leaves into the pan. I exhaled shakily, pretending to focus on the sauce. But inside, I was already unraveling. When the pasta dough was ready, he rolled it out on the counter. "Now we cut," he said, slicing long ribbons with swift precision. He handed me the cutter. "Your turn." I tried, but the ribbons came out uneven, too thick in some places. He chuckled, not unkindly. "It is okay. Imperfections can be charming." He stepped behind me again, his hand resting lightly on my hip as he guided my movements. The contact was casual, yet it sent a rush of heat through me. "Like this," he murmured, his other hand covering mine as I sliced the dough. I swallowed hard, every nerve in my body alive with his closeness. His touch lingered longer than necessary, and when I finally dared to glance at him, his eyes were already on me, dark, intense, filled with something more than just instruction. The pasta strips fell across the counter, but I hardly noticed. The real heat wasn't on the stove. It was between us, simmering, undeniable. And as we locked eyes, I knew this class was heading somewhere neither of us could pretend to ignore. By the time we dropped the pasta ribbons into the pot of boiling water, the kitchen was filled with steam, rich aromas, and a current of electricity so thick I could almost taste it. Adrian stirred the sauce, then reached for the wine again, refilling our glasses. His eyes never left me as he handed mine over, his fingers brushing deliberately against mine. "You are doing very well," he said, his voice velvet and warm. "But I wonder," he leaned in, his lips dangerously close to my ear. "Are you enjoying the cooking or the company more?" I froze, my breath catching in my throat. I wanted to laugh it off, to play innocent, but my pulse betrayed me. Slowly, I turned to face him, my glass trembling slightly in my hand. "Both," I admitted softly, almost a whisper. His smile deepened, but it wasn't the playful grin from before. It was darker, hungrier. He set his glass down, closing the distance between us. "Good," he murmured, "because passion in the kitchen should always be shared." Before I could respond, His hand slid over mine, steadying it as I stirred the sauce. The gesture was simple, but his touch sent fire coursing through me. His body was close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him, and when I looked up, his gaze locked on my lips. Time seemed to slow. The bubbling pot, the sizzling pan, even my racing thoughts all faded into the background. There was only him. "Adrian," I breathed, my voice barely audible. "Yes, Claire?" His tone was teasing, but the edge of restraint was cracking. "Are we still talking about cooking?" I asked, my lips curving in a shaky smile. His eyes darkened. "Not anymore." And then he kissed me. It wasn't tentative, it was hungry, demanding, the kind of kiss that ignites something deep inside. My glass slipped from my hand, landing softly on the counter as his fingers slid into my hair, tilting my head back to claim me fully. I melted into him, my hands clutching at his chest, feeling the strength beneath the soft cotton of his chef's jacket. He tasted of wine, of heat, of something entirely forbidden and intoxicating. The kiss deepened, slow and searching at first, then urgent, desperate, as though we'd both been holding back too long. When he finally pulled away, his forehead pressed against mine. Both of us breathless, he whispered, "Do you know what the secret ingredient to every unforgettable dish is?" I shook my head, my lips tingling from his. "Desire," he said simply, his thumb brushing along my jaw. The pasta was ready, but neither of us cared. He lifted me onto the counter effortlessly, standing between my knees as his hands explored the curves of my waist, my hips. I gasped, clutching at his shoulders as the heat between us roared into a flame. The kitchen, once just my quiet, ordinary space, was now transformed into something far more intimate. Every touch, every kiss carried a forbidden thrill, as though the food was just an excuse for what we both truly hungered for. And as his lips trailed down the side of my neck, I knew there was no turning back. The steam from the stove curled around us, but the real heat was between our bodies. Adrian's lips burned a trail down my throat as his hands gripped my waist, pulling me closer. I could feel the strength in him, controlled yet brimming with desire, like a man who had been waiting for this moment all night. I let out a soft moan, my fingers threading through his dark hair. The scent of garlic and basil mingled with his cologne, creating a heady mix that left me dizzy with want. "Adrian," I whispered, my voice trembling, This isn't part of the class." He chuckled against my skin, low and wicked. But the best lessons are never written down. They are felt." His mouth found mine again, and this time the kiss was deeper, more urgent, stealing every ounce of restraint I had left. His hands roamed boldly, exploring the curve of my back, the softness of my thighs, igniting me with every touch. The pasta boiled over, hissing angrily, but neither of us cared. He lifted me off the counter, turning and pressing me gently against the wall, his body flush against mine. I could feel his heartbeat pounding as wildly as mine, every line of him pressed into me like we were made to fit. "Tell me to stop," he murmured against my lips, though his eyes burned with the hope that I wouldn't. I shook my head, breathless. "Don't stop." That was all it took. The world outside ceased to exist. Time melted away as his lips, his hands, his body taught me lessons no cookbook ever could. Every movement was a mixture of hunger and tenderness, his intensity matched by a surprising sweetness that made me feel cherished even in the fire of our desire. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't clumsy. It was deliberate, intoxicating, each touch feeding the flame between us until I was lost in him completely. I'd never known cooking could lead to this kind of passion, but maybe, just as he'd said, it was never about the food. It was about connection, about tasting something forbidden and finding it sweeter than anything else in the world. When we finally collapsed together, tangled in breathless laughter and satisfied sighs, the kitchen was a mess, flour dusted across the counter, sauce splattered, pasta forgotten in the pot. But in that moment, it was the most beautiful chaos I had ever seen. Adrian brushed a strand of hair from my face, his fingers gentle now, his gaze soft. "You see, Claire," he whispered, "you were never hopeless in the kitchen. You only needed the right partner. I smiled, my heart swelling, heat still lingering in every inch of me. And what happens after the lesson? I asked, my voice playful but tinged with vulnerability. He kissed me softly, tenderly this time. After the lesson, we keep practicing. We sat on the counter, sharing what remained of the wine, laughing as we tried the overcooked pasta and ruined sauce. And somehow, it didn't matter that the food was imperfect, because what we had created together in that stolen, forbidden night was unforgettable. And I knew, deep in my bones, that this private cooking class had changed everything.